We're back again, folks. This time we are in Raceroom Racing Experience, and it's been a hell of a long time since I've experienced the experience of Raceroom. We're at Autodrome Most, whatever way you want to pronounce it. Cool track in the Tatus F4. Always provides great racing. We've had some races here before, which has been featured on the channel. You'll see here popping up on the screen. You'll have a chance to view that at the end of this race if you do wish on viewing that also, if you've never seen it before. So welcome. This turns out to be a pretty awesome race. So I've got obviously the inboard cam here, but I've also got an outboard cam just up in the top corner as well. Add something else to the mix. So thanks a lot for everyone who watched the previous video in ACC. So I do appreciate anyone who has viewed that video, and of course thanks for anyone who subbed during that time also, so welcome to the channel. As I said, it's been a long time since I've been in Raceroom, and don't get me wrong, I love this sim, but it's beginning to show its age, and I want to take this video to kind of talk about some of the things that I really like about Raceroom, but then also some things I want to change in Raceroom essentially. And I understand the sim is quite a few years old at this point, but I do think, for one, the new graphics or shader reset or update that they made recently looks fantastic. I'll actually put in a side-by-side comparison with a previous stream that I mentioned before, just so you can see the difference in the shaders quality and the colors and the graphics within the game. I think it looks so much better, and thanks a lot for Raceroom for constantly updating a sim that is, in most people's opinion, past its prime. But I'm really happy that they're still working on it, still updating content. And of course, we've just had the news that that awesome DLC or content is coming to Raceroom with the old Toka race cards. And if you're anything like me, I spent so many years on the PlayStation 1 when it was released, the Toka touring car game. I absolutely love that game. I played the hell out of it, even though I didn't know that it was a real championship at the time. I absolutely love that game, and I actually have a PS1 in my apartment here, and I also have Toka Touring Car. It's a game that I still love to this day, so I'm super excited to see that content come in, and I'll for sure be playing it once it is available to the general public. So not much happening in the race here just yet. We're still behind. I'm not going to pronounce that surname. I don't know how to say it. Coke?
Please give me Coke. Coke.
Let's just say Coke in the yellow here. We're gone a little bit far behind, but this is an awesome track. It does provide really good racing. As you can see, the two cars ahead here getting pretty close, and this run out of this S complex is super important to try get a run. So yeah, we're just biding our time here. We had one lap of practice, and bear in mind we haven't been in Raceroom now in I'd say 8 months, 9 months, probably even the bones of a year. So one lap practice, we're just getting up to speed here, kind of getting a feel for the car and the track and seeing where we can begin to push things. So you'll notice that I also have the default hood on here. I don't have the Otter hood, as it's called, on Raceroom. I actually just took that away. I kind of prefer just the original hood, keep it nice and simple. As you see there, the car gone off, just avoiding him. Stick it to the inside, and we're past the aforementioned Coke in the yellow Tatus F4, and this is when things get a little bit tighter, and this turns out to be a really tight race between us all. Now you will notice throughout the first few laps of that race, I don't know what lap we're on. Maybe we're on lap 2, 3. I don't know how long I've been talking, but anyway, you'll notice that I've got a few track limits at this point, and this is one thing that I've noticed with Raceroom in comparison to other sims. The track limits are ridiculous. Like, maybe they're not. Okay, let's be honest here. Maybe they're actually accurate to what they are on the tracks, but you'll see here now, I've barely half the car over the curb, and I get an incident point for an off track. Hello folks, editing Alan here, and it's a good thing I have that outboard footage, because I'm about to go on a rant here about track limits, and albeit I do think the track limits are slightly more aggressive than other sim titles, it's pretty obvious that I'm simply going outside the boundaries of the track each time. You see the outboard footage here, and each time I'm getting a track limit violation here, my car, the entire car, is simply going outside the white lines. So, number one, disregard the next minute or so, because I'm just ranting about track limits where I have no reason to, because I'm simply just obviously going outside the limits of the track. And two, I'm an idiot, and yeah, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. Back to it. It just doesn't seem to be accurate, right? Obviously, we've got the curbs on the edge of the track. As that yellow car comes up the inside of us, we just cut him off here, try to get the run out of the S. We're still focused on that car ahead. But anyway, back to the curbs and the off tracks or track limits. Barely half the car over the curb and we get a track limit violation. It just doesn't seem accurate, especially considering you have this blue space outside the curb also to run onto. And one of these corners, this one in particular, you'll see there again, barely half the car out as the car behind almost spins us. And again here, we're just getting track limit after track limit, and you'll see a little bit later, there actually starts to be some DQs, I think, happening because people have reached their track limit or incident violation of 40 points. So it's something to be careful of in Raceroom, because you know, you race in this sim the same way as you would others. You try to push the limits, you try to find the outer limits of the track, but you're burned far easier in Raceroom, it seems, than other sims. It's just not something I agree with. I think they're far too stringent on track limits, considering that, you know, you've barely got a car, or half a car over the curb, and you see there again getting another track limit. I just find it possibly a little bit too tight of a regulation, I suppose, with track limits, but that's one of the things. Another thing since I hopped into Raceroom, and this has been a thing before, I actually went back to one of my live streams, one of my original live streams I ever did on YouTube, and it was in Raceroom Racing Experience when I was first figuring the sim out, first trying it out, and I absolutely fell in love with it. But one thing I noticed is the pixelated dashes on the car. Now this is a very, very simple thing, but, and I will say this in honesty, because I've seen people jump into my streams, onto my videos, and literally say, they just say, haha, pixelated dashboard. And that is a huge thing with Raceroom, and I cannot understand it for the life of me. I spent about an hour and a half on my sim rig yesterday, just trying to play around with the settings, the graphic settings for Raceroom, to try and get the display on the car, on the GT3 car specifically, you'll see on screen, to get that displaying HD, so that the metrics or numbers or whatever you want to call them on the dash didn't display pixelated as we lose P4, I think that was, into the first chicane. But let's get back to pixelated HUD here, as I'm on a bit of a rant and I want to keep talking about this. So I find this one of the strangest things, is that the game looks fantastic now, it still looks good for its age. However, the most basic thing, the thing that you see the most when you're playing this game, not maybe as a driver, but as a viewer watching people play this game, is you just see a pixelated HUD. It's almost comical, and almost to the point where people just simply will disregard the sim because they look at that and think, well, why is the HUD pixelated? It looks like it's a PS2 game, a PS1 game. So it seems slightly ridiculous considering they're putting so much effort into content and into improving the racing experience, the graphics experience within Raceroom, that they don't pay attention to the HUD. Now maybe there is an easy fix for this that I've simply missed, and I encourage you to comment below if you do know a fix for the pixelated HUD in Raceroom. I've searched online and I've only seen people suggest that we turn off the motion blur and play around with the different settings, which I have done with no improvement to the HUD. I find it comical, and I think it's one of those things that really, really lets the sim down. Even though as a driver, you know, how often do you look down on the sim, on the HUD? You don't, really. You're going to be focused on the track elsewhere. But if you ever do want to take information from that, you know, I just laugh every time I see it. So things are getting tight here. We've got P4 and P3 ahead. These are the cars that we're going to be with entirely through the rest of this race. And this is where it gets very tight. We're just hanging back here and seeing what happens. These guys are slightly faster than me. I'm only coming up to pace now after getting a few laps in the car, getting a feel for how our braking is, again picking up an incident point for track limits, and just trying to play around here and get a feel for things. I don't want to be outbraking myself. I certainly don't want to cause any accidents, and I just want to sit back and wait for my moment. Now moving on to the new content coming out from Raceroom. Now I understand this is a little bit different than maybe other commentary videos you've watched when people are racing, and you know, I want to comment on the race itself, but I also find it an opportunity to simply just talk about the sims, and I want to you know, I want to explore that. I want to try, just talk about different things as the races are going on. Tell me if you love it, tell me if you hate it. You know, there's plenty of content creators out there that simply comment and do a great job of commenting on the race as it's happening. You can see there's this position switch ahead. And you know, I try to do it in between generally chatting about things, but I want to know what you think. If you'd rather me just comment on the videos as they're happening and more commentate on it, or you're simply happy for me to just ramble on and watch the video in behind and things happening. But anyway, let's talk about the new content coming out for Raceroom. Now obviously we had the DTM pack, the retro, let's just say retro DTM pack. I'm not really familiar with what year it was. I think it was 95, but that looks awesome. Not something I'm incredibly into myself, as the car behind us almost takes us out. Not something I ever really paid attention to was DTM. I think the cars are awesome. I think it's a cool series. However, I've never played any DTM specific games. I'm not even sure if there is any that exist, and I'd also never heard of DTM before I picked up Raceroom. It's one of those sims that have those cars that are a little bit different than most sims. You know, you get some retro cars in here, and then also you get the likes of the DTM that's available in here as well, that you don't necessarily get on other sims. But anyway, moving forward to the new content that's been released, that new pack, and I'm just going to call it the Toka Touring Car Pack, because that's how I associate those cars, that's what I remember them as, and that's what has me excited for it. That is one pack that I am surely going to get, and surely going to create some content around, because as I said before, I spent so much of my childhood in Toka Touring Car, playing those games, and when I look back on it now, you know, in my mind, and I'm sure with a lot of you guys, when you played PlayStation 1 games, when you've seen these games like Formula 1 98, Formula 1 97, you've got Toka Touring Car, you've obviously got the original Gran Turismo. When those games came out on PS1, it felt like you were driving a real car. The graphics were stunning. They were ultra realistic. They were so high res. They were awesome, right? And now you look at it, as you can see on screen, and they just look so outdated, as you'd expect them to. Of course, they're decades old at this point, but got so much enjoyment out of it, and it really fueled my passion for racing games. I've always had a thing for racing games from that point. Nice tight battle there into T1. We've kept the position, of course, from Voigt behind. Very close racing. We've got our eyes firmly set on Bome ahead, trying to get by that dude. But I'll get back to the content. I can't wait, honestly. I think it's going to be such a cool pack of content to have for Raceroom and make the sim that much better. Another thing about Raceroom, and let's talk about this, let's talk about the ranked lobbies in Raceroom. Now, before I raced at Autodrome Most here in the Tatus F4, I logged into Raceroom the day before this, I'm pretty sure, looking for a lobby, because I knew also that they have an updated Zandvoort with the new DTM pack, which I purchased. And happily purchased. You know, I like buying content in Raceroom, and I'm always happy to support a sim title that is constantly updating their content and providing value to the community, which I think Raceroom does a really good job of. See here, we're slightly pushed off track. He gave us a tiny little bit less than the recommended room there. Fake to the inside, trying to make him make a mistake, but it doesn't work. Of course, we're back down to E6. But let's get back to what I was talking about, which was the Raceroom ranked lobbies. Extremely quiet. I mean, crickets. Barely. You know, there's 6 people in this lobby. It shows 8 on the leaderboard up on top there in the HUD. The DNF actually didn't start. I think that should be a DNS. I'm pretty sure that person didn't even start the race. So you're talking prime time evening when people are home from work, and this is what we can muster up, is about, you know, max 7 people in a lobby. I also did a few DTM races, and there was about 10 people in the lobby, so not so bad. But I know me, like most people, I like a packed lobby. I like to know that there's a good bunch of people there that are racing with me, and I can of course test my abilities against an entire range of people. Now, I understand Raceroom isn't the sim that it used to be. I also understand it's not obviously as popular as the newer sim titles out there. It's never going to be. That's just not the way it is anymore. However, I do know that there is a very dedicated fan base for this sim, and I just think Raceroom needs to do a little bit more, if possible. I don't know how it works to get more people into the sim and racing. Obviously, they're providing more and more content, which I think is great, but you've got the likes of SimGrid, you've got the likes of LFM, And these platforms, love them or hate them, they're providing a service for sim racers. They're providing a proven service, and a service that has more than 100,000 members at this point, at least in LFM. I can only imagine that SimGrid pretty much has the same, because that was the go-to ranked space before LFM became a thing. But these have massive platforms that they can integrate with and get people into Raceroom. I know that Automobilista, I could be wrong in this, Automobilista 2 is looking at becoming a part of LFM or integrating with LFM to allow people to do ranked races. We of course have ACC, we of course have Asetek or Factor 2, we've got Le Mans Ultimate. You've got all these sims that offer a really good online experience for players. But Raceroom can't do that as just a standalone sim anymore. It's too old, and there's a lot of newcomers into the sim racing space, a lot of younger people, and I can say that because I'm old. There's a lot of younger people. You know, I'm 37 now, I'm no longer a little sprout, and I'm guessing a lot of you guys are, you know, around my age, and I know a lot of people between 24 and 34 view my videos. But there's younger people coming in, and they're not going to know what a race room is. It's like telling them that there used to be dial-up phones. They're going to say, what the fuck is that? And if you've ever seen those Ellen degenerate shows that basically have people, you know, millennials or whatever you want to call them. Actually, no, I think I'm a millennial. Boomers. I know I'm not a boomer either. Whatever you call them. Gen Z, Gen X, I don't care. But you see them trying to use these devices or phones or technology, whatever, that was a thing back 10, 20 years ago, and they all laugh at them because they can't use it, and it's no surprise. But when you think about sim titles, when you think about games, if you've got a 17, 18-year-old coming into sim racing, they're only going to pay attention to iRacing, ACC, Asetek, and let's just pause there, because you seen that car that we were actually having a pretty close battle with there, he simply just stopped. And what I think happened there is that he reached his incident point limit. Because I'm pretty sure, I'm just looking at the relative here, he's now 7.5 seconds behind. I'm pretty sure he just stopped. I think he probably went into the pits. I'm not sure if he was disqualified, or I'm not really sure what happened there. Actually, he's probably keeping about 8 seconds from us. Anyway, I'm not sure what happened there, but I assumed at this point that he simply reached his DNF limit, or his incident point limit, but maybe that's not the case. But still, confusing, I'm not really sure what happened there. But let's focus on this battle with Bome. This is the dude that we're going to be battling right to the bitter end in this race at this point. But let me get back to Raceroom as, well, ranked lobbies, I should say. Because of course I've been talking about Raceroom all this time. And as I said, I'm going off on tangents here. I'm using this video for something different, and tell me if you love it or hate it. It's cool either way. But ranked lobbies in Raceroom, if they can, I'm not sure how their ranked system works, if they're able to integrate with these new softwares. And you know, people, younger people coming into sim racing, this is still a good sim. This is still a sim title that provides fantastic racing. Its driving experience isn't as finesse or finite or as detailed as other sims, I think. I think it's basically an understeer simulator. If you've ever played a Raceroom, you probably know what I mean by that. However, it still provides a great racing experience, and with a more lenient damage and collision model, it provides an opportunity for people to race hard with very little consequence. And even if that is slightly unrealistic in the grand scheme of things, and of course we're talking about simulators here, so we expect them to be as realistic as possible, that's still a good thing. You know, you need those sims that have more lenient systems when it comes to contact, when it comes to close racing. You ever try race close in iRacing? It's literally a lottery when it comes to their netcode model. You know, if you're basically just going to die the minute you get close to a car. And you can have fantastic racing in all those sims, especially iRacing. But of course, it depends on your connection. It depends on the lobby you're in. It depends who you're racing. And if you come together, more than likely, you're dead. And that's a simulator. You know, that's what happens in real life as well. But then also, it's more enjoyable to have sims like this that's a little bit more lenient when it comes to collisions, that allow you to brush doors, essentially, that allow you to block, that allow you to have those minute pieces of contact, but still be able to continue to race without much damage or repercussions when it comes to your car and how it handles. So I do think it's still a very relative sim racing title. It's fun. It looks great for its age, and it has so much content, that other sims just don't have. You know, what other sim has Macau apart from maybe a mod in Asetek Corsa? Of course, Asetek Corsa by default doesn't have these tracks, but of course you can get so many mods for that at this point. But I think, and especially Autodrome Most as well, I haven't seen that in any other sim. I could be wrong on that, but this is another awesome track, and I'm always happy to see this in ranked lobbies when it is available. As we're coming down to the first chicane here, and just trying to feint to the inside just to try and make that dude ahead make a mistake, as this is the last lap also. So we're just on the cusp of a podium here, just trying to make our way through and keep that pressure on Bome ahead. Now back to some of the things I did talk about in this video. Now for these specific lobbies, and obviously I said before that there was very few people actually online when searching for these lobbies, and these are just purely open lobbies available, ready to jump in straight away when jumping online. So that's not counting any private lobbies or any specific lobbies outside of just the normal ranked Raceroom lobbies, as I do see an upward trend on Steam, and this is what has me excited for Raceroom coming into 2025 with all of these new content packs. There does seem to be an upward trend with the game that I'm super excited about. It's really good to see more and more people hop into Raceroom. There's more players online, there's more people simply playing the game, and maybe they're playing it in private, as I do at the moment. The majority of time I spend in Raceroom, it's in single player mode, and it's a shame. And that's why I'm harping on so much about trying to make it more accessible for people, and especially new sim racers, to get in and play Raceroom, especially when looking at joining softwares like LFM and SimGrid. Really fun race in here, and albeit a lack of overall numbers in the race, it was still fantastic fun as always. Raceroom always is, and it's still going to remain one of my favorite sims. So let me know your thoughts on what we talked about today, what your opinions on it are, and of course, if you do have a fix for that pixelated dashboard issue that I'm experiencing. I just can't seem to find a way around it. But thanks a lot for watching. If you haven't already, hit the like button if you've enjoyed the content, and of course consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. There's also this video that's popping up on your screen right now that I think you'll really enjoy if you did enjoy this video. It's just a video taken from one of my previous streams in Raceroom. I think you'll really enjoy it. But thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one.